Hello, I'm the Anime Viewer 66. Today we're going to be taking a look at Baka and Test, the show with the most anime cliches ever, and the very definition of a guilty pleasure. Within the story of Baka and Test, there is a school that has a very strange ranking system. They judge the kids on their grades, and whoever has the best grades gets to go to the A class, where you get to have all the cool and awesome stuff that the school has to offer. And if you have the lowest grades, you're in F class, which is, well, let's just say they have nothing and nothing to live for. Guess where our heroes are from? That's right, F class, because even in anime, the whole underdog story is always overplayed. And of course, there is the ones B, C, and D class as well, but they're not really looked at as much except as challengers. But it's not all bad for our heroes because at this school they have a very special system where kids can fight with these little digital avatars, which are just basically little versions of themselves, in this digital field that the school has. The digital field is activated by whatever teacher is around at the time, and the power of the avatars that they have are determined by the teacher that is giving the battle. So, say you have a math teacher and you're really good at math, then your power is going to be really strong. Say you got a history teacher, you're really bad at history, you're going to be weak, so forth and so on. And if by some miracle a lower class is able to beat one of the upper class, then it's basically a trade off. They trade their supplies like desks and books and all that sort of stuff so they can get a better school experience. But there is always the chance that they will lose, and if they do lose, well, let's just say things can and will get worse. Now, the one very important thing to remember about this show is even though it has a lot of action, romance, all that sort of thing, first and foremost, it is a comedy. Its job is to make you laugh, and if it doesn't make you laugh, then it's failed at its job. I laughed sometimes, but not all of the time and not all that often, which is a problem with the comedy. Now, comedy is subjective, and of course, what I find funny, you may not find funny, but even so, I have to judge it on the merit that I find it funny. So yeah. And what was the main problem with the comedy in this? Well, it relies on a lot, a lot of puns and different sort of jokes that go nowhere, and a lot of jokes that you pretty much only find in anime, and maybe at the time was like side-splitting hilarious, but we've seen it so much now that it's just kind of gotten old. For example, there's the old joke of, oh, a guy walks in on the girls doing something that he wasn't supposed to see them getting gobbled up in, like the hot springs or the shower or whatever, and he gets beat up for it. Wada wada wada. Now, granted, this show does put a bit of a twist on that later on down in the episodes, but there are still plenty of episodes where that trope is just used in its like normalist form. Once again, that is a trope of anime and it's used quite a bit. It's just one I find to be very annoying. Another running gag that absolutely and completely annoyed me and was getting me angry by the end of the show was the fact that they had very abusive relationships. Now, yes, the relationships were supposed to be comical with the over the top violence that they have, and the violence was played towards the guys instead of towards the girls, but that still doesn't make it any less atrocious. I am sick and tired of people thinking that abuse towards a guy in a relationship is funny just because, oh, the guy got beat up by a girl, wada wada wada. It's stupid. I am sick and tired of seeing this trope, and they overuse it to no end in this show. I about quit like 3 times watching the show just because of how much anger I was getting from it. Now, there's a lot of characters in this show, and I'm not going to go too deep into them. There's a lot of stereotypes, like the guy that is an idiot, yet somehow is the lead character. You have the girl that is really smart, but she's also very naive. You even have a couple of characters that make fun of Yaoi and Yuri, which actually led to some of the funniest jokes in this show. There is also one character that I do want to talk about because I found his character to be probably the most interesting throughout all of them, and that, of course, is Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi is the character that is a very feminine guy and is forced by, well, pretty much everyone around him to dress very femininely, and everyone at the school pretty much treats him like a girl. And this kind of character can be used a lot of times for comedic purposes. The whole cross dressing thing is taken as a comical thing in many forms, and I don't necessarily think that is always a bad thing. There's been plenty of comedic moments within cartoons and anime history where cross dressers have been used as a tool for that, most famous probably being Bugs Bunny. However, this character has a bit of a twist to it in that he doesn't like to cross dress, and yet at the same time, He sort of just accepts it as his lot in life. Uh, he has a very melancholy sense to everything, I suppose you could say. And the way that he is pretty much the voice of reason to everyone else's insanity made him my favorite character. So, in the end, this show does have its fair share of problems. Although the action is pretty good, it's not anything ultra impressive. It's certainly nothing like Kill la Kill or Ruby or anything like that. It's just acceptable. The comedy, while it can be, well, downright offensive sometimes and sometimes just unfunny, when the jokes hit their mark, they do indeed hit their mark quite well. I'm not going to tell you any of them because, well, jokes are best experienced, not necessarily told secondhand. So even though I wouldn't suggest watching the show in any sort of big way, like, oh, you got to go out and see it immediately, if you watch it, there is a chance you will probably laugh a couple of times throughout the seasons. And there is the fact that their abusive relationships did annoy me to no end, but there was actually, towards the end, a sort of loving relationship, sort of, kind of happening. It's complicated without going into spoilers. In the end, I say that this show is okay. I actually enjoyed watching it, even though I felt the whole time that I shouldn't enjoy watching it. That's why I call it a guilty pleasure. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I give this show 2 stars out of 5. If you want to go watch it, but it's not really going to get much of an endorsement from me besides the fact that I burned some time watching it and it was okay. I am the Anime Viewer 66. Thank you and good night.